All right, so I'm going to continue painting now. You'll see me switching colors and switching brush size as I go through, making sure that you're on the top layer or your paint layer 1 while you're painting. I'm ready to start putting in some more color, and I'm going to set this clip to fast motion when I export it, so you'll notice there's going to be a speeding up. All right, so here we go, and I am going to go ahead and pick my medium gray color and start to paint again. And here I'm taking a little bit of creative license to have the underside of the bird's chest look a little bit more shapely. Change my brush, make it smaller again, and paint some of the beak with this gray color. There's actually a little bit of blue in that beak, and I probably come back and add some of that blue back in there later. Looking around again, are there any other little light shades that I might want to add here? Maybe some little fringes on the bottom. These are kind of some cool dots around the eyes. All right, I'm going to switch to the darker gray now. I think I'll use the dark gray over here to accentuate that feather, and some places on the legs and chest. I'm going to switch back to my light gray and fill in over here. And I want to get a better idea of what it looks like overall again. So I'm going to hide the original by clicking on the eyeball and zooming out, Command minus. And that's what I have done so far. Here I can fill in some of these odd gaps that I have up between the two sections of color of blue and gray. And I'm going to pick my light gray again, get my get my paintbrush tool, and here I'll fill in some of these. Zoom out, Command minus. A little speck there to paint, some specks here. All right, I'm going to turn my bird original layer back on and pick the next color, dark blue, and actually medium blue, and I'm going to paint in this area here with that medium blue color. I think I'll bring some medium blue back into the back of the head. If I look at this without the color layer on, you can see it's kind of dark around this eye patch. I'll make some dark blue lines. Zooming out a little. I want to get the beak done. I'm going to zoom in around the beak. Space bar will give you the hand tool so you can move your work over back to this dark gray color, and the paintbrush. I'm going to fill in. Put my medium gray color, make this a little smaller, not that small. So it's going to take some concentration and focus for you to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. I'm going to make a small brush here and paint some of these lines, maybe a little bit bigger. I'm going to switch to the medium blue again and paint in a lot of the head here. You can see that I'm going over some of these dark blue lines, which I might want to add back in. And hide the original layer again. Now I'm going to pick up some really dark gray with black from up here. I know that's adding another color, but I think I need it. So I'm going to put that here. You know what? That looks too dark, so I'm going to go Command Z and actually stick with my original dark gray color. Paint that around this eye. Make a brush smaller. And I'm going to hide the original. I think it's time for me to fill in the eye. So I'm going to use this very dark gray, which is darker than the gray I'd chosen. Fill in the eye. And then since I'm probably just going to use this one time here, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool again to sample this odd color, kind of a smushy gray, slate gray blue color, and paint this little part in. Now I'll look again without the background layer on. You can see now how much you need to still work on. Sometimes it's hard to tell if you have a light color how much you've really filled in. I'll show you a couple of tricks for that in the next movie. But for the rest of this movie, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly fill in all of the large areas so that we can get to the next step. Really starting to look much more like a bird. Now I'm going to focus on getting the legs in. And I'm just going to paint these legs in with the solid medium gray for now, and then come back and put in some highlights and some shadows after the fact. If you make a mistake, you can always use Command Z to undo a step. If you need to undo more than one step, press Option, Command, and Z. You can see I'm going back a couple of steps. Press the Z key to get the zoom tool, or click on the zoom or magnifying glass button and click to zoom in on what you want to zoom in on. Make sure you pick the brush again to start filling in your work. Round that out a little. Spacebar to move the work over, Command minus to zoom out, Command plus to zoom in. Right, it's starting to look like I have a bird here. I'm going to use the brush tool again to outline the back. And then the darkest of my dark colors here. Let's tear that off again. Fill in this little spot. Right, I think the tail is pretty much done. Now I'll work on this top of the back using my lightest blue again. Just kind of guessing. And I'm going to fill this all in with the light blue. Now, as I said, in this movie, I am showing you how to fill in most of it. But in the next or final movie for the bird part, what we'll be looking at is how to add the details, the highlights and the shadows, and any little bits that we have missed. So if you don't get everything exactly filled in on this part of your work, you'll have a chance to come back and add more detail. Remember Command Z for undo. I'll fill in a little more here. Hide and show. And a little more here. Get my lightest color. I'm going to fill in a whole bunch of the chest here. Get my medium color blue, kind of finish up the large area of blue for the wing. Okay, now I'm going to hide the original again and concentrate really hard on just filling this area in. Maybe make my brush a little bigger. All right, I am happy with this and ready to go on to the next step, which is showing you how to add a solid color background so that you can see the areas that you have not painted in yet, and finishing it up and putting in your fine tuning. We'll do that in the next movie. I will see you then.